If you've been going around the good old internet looking for the right podcast to fulfill your New York Yankees needs, well, I'll be the first to deliver the good news to you. You have found it. Here on Yapping Yankees with me, your host, Mike Scudero, you and I will be discussing the latest news, takes, and talk throughout the entire Yankee universe. Oh, and there may be some ranting on my behalf. Yeah. Anyway, what do you say we get to it? Let's get to yapping! Well, hello there, my fellow Yankee fans, and welcome to episode 262 of the Yapping Yankees podcast. As always, I am your host, Mike Scudero, your friendly neighborhood Yankee yapper with the best yap in all the land, here on September 7th, 2025, with yet another extra large order of the Yappuccino for you. Thank you. You are too kind. Freaking round of applause at the beginning of every episode. How you guys doing this week, my friends? I lived up to my promise. I came back for yet another week live here from the echo chamber once again. You got to be able to poke fun at yourself, right? But it is good to be back here for yet another week in a row. I am glad I was able to do it. As a matter of fact, I did mention possibly wanting to do this when we last yapped last Sunday, but it is an idea that I'm still hoping to be able to fulfill for you. It's going to be hard because especially the last weekend of September is going to be very difficult because I have a big wedding that weekend where I will be the best man and have a lot of things to prepare for, physically, mentally, the whole deal, you know. So if you ever had an obligation like that to something as big as a wedding, you know what I mean. But that weekend's going to be tough, so I hope to be able to still deliver for you. But what I'm talking about is I do hope to be able to do an episode. Actually, this would be the most consistent I've ever been all season if I'm able to pull this off. I'm hoping to be able to do an episode every single weekend of September. I've had a lot going on in 2025 that has been no secret at all. If you've been keeping up with me and staying on the ride and not hopping off, I thank you infinitely for that, as I have been for weeks now. But if you've been along for the ride all year long, you know that this has been the most inconsistent I've ever been because I've had a lot going on. Just listen back to the last bunch of episodes if you need a recap on that. Don't want to repeat myself too much, but it has been an action-packed year to say the least, and that has resulted in this being the most inconsistent I've ever been with Yapping Yankees. I've been doing this since the very beginning of towards the beginning of the 2019 season. This show has been going on a while now. As far as seasons of coverage, this is my 7th season covering the Yankees on this show. I've been watching the Yankees since 2007, of course, so almost 20 years now, which is hard to believe. But been doing this show for 6 years and covering 7 seasons, and of all of them, this has by far been the most inconsistent. But I figure, in light of that, especially because of how exciting things have been recently and how much everything is at stake lately for the Yankees, especially regarding the division, particularly in light of this past week, which we will get to everything. Got a lot to talk about today, and I'm very excited for it. And I'm happy to be excited for it and not miserable. Being very excited is much better than the alternative, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I figure especially amidst all the excitement for that this past week and what is still to come in the final 3 weeks of the 2025 regular season, which, as usual, I cannot believe I'm friggin' saying that, I at least would like to finish what has been an inconsistent episode season. I'd like to at least finish it strong. So I do intend to at least try to the best of my ability to go straight through to the end of the season and obviously do as good as I possibly can in October. I am going to be away the first weekend of October, so that's definitely not happening, which is pretty crazy, I know, because around that time is when the playoffs will be going on, so that'll stink. But I hope to miss that weekend at the most and then get right back on the horse for whatever remains of the playoffs after that. We don't know what's going to happen for the rest of the season out, of course, or what will happen, obviously, especially when the playoffs begin, and what part the Yankees will have in it as division winners or wild card winner, and what will happen in the wild card round if they don't win the division, if they even make it past it. If they do make it past it or do win the division, what will happen in the DS, possibly the CS, we just don't know. There's no way to possibly tell. So we'll see how it all plays out, but at least for the rest of the regular season, I intend on doing an episode for the rest of the way out to at least finish what has been an inconsistent season strong. That's the goal, and I don't know what the future holds for 2026, guys, because Life is just getting busier and busier, as it usually does as you approach 30, like I am. So that's just the way it's been going on. But we'll see how things continue to go along and which direction life takes me in and which direction I want to take this show in as a result and my content overall. There are so many options that technology and the internet give us. I know I've floated the idea of maybe turning this show into just like maybe a 1-hour live stream somewhere or maybe across multiple platforms once or twice a week maybe. I don't know. I still have to do some thinking on that probably over this off season. We have to see. I don't know what's going to happen. Or maybe I'll give this a shot for another season. I don't know right now. But I want to at least finish this season out strong by going straight through September. We already yapped last week, as we know, and I want to go the rest of the way out as best as I possibly can, maybe give you some off-season content and see where we go from there as far as 2026 is concerned. But, my God, did the Yankees have an eventful week. They took care of business.
Give me a hell yeah!
They deserve a lot of hell yeahs. I really didn't know what to think heading into this past week, as I'm sure a lot of other people didn't know what to think, because the Yankees have really struggled against good teams this year. And they had a very important 2 weeks coming up, as when we last yapped last Sunday. We knew they had the Astros coming up, the Blue Jays coming up, and then to follow, which is now coming up this next week here, starting on Tuesday, since they have tomorrow off, do the Yankees, the Tigers, and at Fenway Park, the Red Sox for the last time this year. There's a lot at stake, and I think we drove the point home last week that this is really going to show what they're made of, and this is going to define a lot of things, both who they are as a team and where they are in the standings, wild card, division, regardless, either one or both. It was really going to be a massive determining factor, because then after that, the Yankees are actually very fortunate, having mostly a cakewalk the rest of the way out for the final 2 weeks, starting, well, I want to say next weekend, but it's after next weekend when they're done with Boston. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be an automatic cakewalk, because we know that sometimes bad teams get this weird flair in them when they want to play up against good teams and ruin some playoff hopes in those last couple of weeks there. And sometimes good teams just happen to downplay bad teams towards the end, especially if they're feeling very confident about themselves and they feel they're in a very good place. They might downplay and then really get themselves into trouble. So it's not an automatic given that because their final 2 weeks tends to be very easy, that it's just going to be fine. They happen to face teams like the Orioles, the White Sox, the Twins, teams like that to finish off the schedule. So it's not an absolute given, but it's certainly much more comforting than last week and what's to come this week against teams like the Astros, Blue Jays, Tigers, and Red Sox. And now a few of those teams I have felt all season long, and that's why the Yankees have had me so baffled at times when they've absolutely sucked for months at a time, that on paper, I do feel that the Yankees are better than many of these teams. They are. But they just haven't played like that, which makes it all the more frustrating, the struggles and the difficulties that they've gone through throughout the year. But this past week, at least this time, because at other points throughout the season, particularly around the middle of it, against these kinds of teams they just finished playing, this was very much not the case. But this past week, the Yankees really handled business. They had the Astros in Houston right after we last spoke on Sunday. They took 2 out of 3 there, and they had the Blue Jays at the stadium this weekend, and just today, earlier this afternoon, they just finished taking 2 out of 3 from them as well, taking both series 2 out of 3 and going 4-2 in the first of 2 weeks of really important gameplay against probably the best that the American League, or amongst the best that the American League has to offer.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
Definitely is a surprise, Palpatine. But I do also acknowledge that a lot of people are going to be like, well, what does that really say, Mike? Because the American League really, when you get down to it, isn't the strongest of leagues. And yeah, you got a point there. In many ways, it isn't too strong. But the fact of the matter is that the American League is the league that the Yankees belong to. And it does certainly help to finish strong against the other best teams that the league has to offer. Helps you to feel better about yourself as you head towards October and your chances to actually match up against these teams once October comes around, if you do happen to end up having to face them. So it helps things and obviously puts yourself into a better position for October, whether it's the wild card or the division. So particularly the Blue Jays are amongst the most important, as the Red Sox are next week, because obviously the Astros belong to the West, the Tigers belong to the Central, so you're not going to have to worry about them as far as the wild card as much, because they're the division winners, obviously, or within your division, because they belong to other divisions. But it does help you to feel a certain type of way heading towards October, and feeling better about the way you can match up against them as you get closer to it. Obviously, the Blue Jays and Red Sox are much more important as far as wild card, division, and you just got done playing one of them and beating them 2 out of 3, when if you're the Yankees, they have really effectively handed you your ass throughout the entire season. So if you had to pick a way to finish, this is the way you want to do it against them. You want to finish off on a strong note. This is the last time the Yankees see the Blue Jays in the regular season. That's how you want it to end. And hopefully they have similar luck next weekend in Boston. That's what you hope for. But we'll look to that in a little bit. Right now, want to majorly focus on what happened this past week. And the Yankees really did get it done. 4-2 against both the Astros and Blue Jays, winning both series. That's exactly what you wanted, if not better. Obviously, 5-1 would have been even better, or possibly even sweeping both, but I think we all doubted that that would happen. So I'll take 4-2. Especially right now when you look at how things are positioned as of the end of play today. With the Yankees win, they are now 2 games back of first. So behind the Blue Jays, the Yankees are 80-63. So that puts them at 143 games. There are 19 games left to go. That's unbelievable. The Red Sox, at the time I'm recording, it's in the late 6 o'clock hour right now. So at this moment, the Red Sox happen to be up 7-4 over the Diamondbacks in Arizona. So the Red Sox, unfortunately, will get the win. So they will stay a game and a half behind the Yankees, 4.5 behind the Blue Jays for first. So despite all of the manhandling the Red Sox have done of the Yankees this year, and I don't want to talk too much, at least without knocking on wood, because the Yankees do play them one more time a week from now. So don't want to sound cocky, but I am just saying that it is unbelievable that the Red Sox can own the Yankees as much as they have this year and still be behind them in the standings. That is pretty funny, if I do say so myself. But it looks like they are going to get the win today. They're 79th of the year, and they'll stay a game and a half behind the Yankees in the division, and thereby the wild card with the second one in possession. And the Mariners hold the third wild card right now with a record of 75-68, with the Rangers trailing them by a game and a half, and Kansas City behind them, behind Texas by a half a game. So it's pretty interesting right now what's going on in the Central, with Cleveland being a half a game behind the Royals as well. So the Royals and Cleveland trying to overtake each other, and Texas making it interesting from the AL West, only a game and a half behind Seattle. So that's fascinating, honestly. It's getting pretty close there, and who knows? If the Rangers happen to go on a run, Seattle slows down a bit. I mean, Seattle had already really come back down to earth a bit lately. They've lost a lot of games in the last few weeks, even games they probably shouldn't have lost. But if the Rangers go on a run, I mean, they could really overtake it, and it gets interesting from there. So that's the deal right now with the AL East. Obviously, after that, the Rays and Baltimore rather, are really just both out of it. So it's really between the Blue Jays, Yankees, and Red Sox going at it. Really, Yankees and Blue Jays right now for the division. And the Red Sox not far behind, but they're mainly the wild card at this point. Yankees still have to make sure they at least hold on to the first wild card. Not too long ago, they were barely clinging on to the third. Those are fun times. With maybe, I don't know, was it Cleveland or Texas? I think it was actually Texas. One of them was like a game or a half a game behind them. Yeah, fun times. Let's not revisit those. But regardless, that's the picture right now. Blue Jays still in first. Yankees only 2 behind them. The Red Sox, after they get this win against the Diamondbacks, if the Diamondbacks don't miraculously come back and win, they will still be a game and a half behind the Yankees, 4.5 behind the Blue Jays. And the Yankees have the first wild card, game and a half over Boston, and then 3.5 behind Boston should be the Mariners once the Red Sox win. And the Mariners have the third. That's the deal. And believe it or not, this past week, I've actually had a few baseball fans, not even just Yankee fans, but baseball fans in general, mostly the older crowd, which I kind of understand why they'd be confused, because they've been watching baseball in many cases for many decades, and they've seen the playoff format switch a lot, and just more and more wild cards being introduced, more and more opportunities for teams to make the playoffs, and therefore the The rounds in the playoffs, the DS, the CS, the wild card round, things continuing to be introduced every few years, just constantly added. It's confusing to them, and they don't understand how the current playoff format is formatted. So I thought I'd actually take a couple of minutes to explain that on this show for a couple of people out there who might not understand. Now, if you already know how it works, you can just jump past maybe, I don't know, a couple of minutes if you want to listen to the rest of the show. But basically how it works is, and I'll use the current standings as a template or an example as to how the postseason bracket and formatting would go right now if the season had ended today with how the teams are positioned right now. So, at the moment, you have 3 division winners, of course. Those would be Toronto, Detroit, and Houston. Houston, of those 3, is the worst of the division winners. Now, the 2 best division winners, in this case Toronto and Detroit, they get the first round off. The first round being the wild card round, best 2 out of 3. All games, whether it's just done in 2 or 3 games, are played at whichever team has the better record, their ballpark for that entire short series, that best of 3. The 2 best teams in the league, the 2 best division winners, get that round off. They don't have to worry about it. They go straight into the division winner, waiting on the winners of those wild card rounds. So Toronto and Detroit get the wild card round off in this case. So now you have the other 4 teams who are going to the playoffs in this particular instance in the American League. You have the 3 wild card winners, because there are 3 wild cards now. And then you have the Astros in this case, who would be the worst of the 3 division winners. This is how the wild card round, that best of 3, before the ALDS best of 5, is formatted. So in this case, the Yankees have the first wild card, the Red Sox have the second, the Mariners have the third. One round would be very similarly to when the best of the bunch faces the worst of the bunch. It would be the Astros against the Mariners, the worst of the division winners. And in this case, record is irrelevant. It's just the worst of the division winners, because in this case, they're clarified as being better than the wild card teams, even if that's not true, depending on the division. That's where it gets a little weird. But since the Astros were a division winner, the worst of the 3 would be the Astros against the Mariners, the worst of the wild card teams. And all games, whether it be 2 or 3 games, the best of 3 would be played in Houston. Whether it be 2 or 3 games, all of them would be there. No games in Seattle. That would be one of the matchups. Obviously, there are still 2 other wild card teams remaining alongside that. The Yankees and Red Sox. Now, because the Yankees are the first wild card team, the Red Sox are the second, the other matchup would be Yankees and Red Sox. Wild, I know, especially in a best of 3. But since the Yankees are the first wild card team and thereby the better team here, every game of that round, the best of 3, would be in Yankee Stadium. So the wild card round would begin best 2 out of 3 in the American League. It would be the Astros and the Mariners, the worst of the division winners against the worst wild card team in Houston, because Houston was the division winner. Best of 3, that's one matchup. Houston, Seattle, in Houston. And then Yankees, Red Sox. Yankees first wild card, Red Sox second wild card. Therefore, that makes all of the games in that round being played at Yankee Stadium. So that is how that would go. Toronto and Detroit have that round off. They don't have to play. Once the winners of those rounds are decided, let's say just for scenario's sake, it would be Houston and the Yankees. Both home teams would win, just saying that for scenario's sake. They would then go into the ALDS to face either Toronto or Detroit. And then the playoffs would basically proceed as most people know them to be. The DS, the CS, and then the World Series. Just that wild card round and the positioning of the teams seem to be confusing people because, this was really just introduced with the third wild card maybe 2-3-ish years ago. So it is still fairly new, so it makes sense why people would still be confused, and they just keep on introducing all these wild cards and all these scenarios to really make it make sense, I guess. To some people, still doesn't, but that's why I'm here. I'm here to explain it for you. So for those who are confused about it, I hope that provided some more clarity as to how it would go, particularly in the instance if the season were to end today, how things would be positioned. We could do the same thing for the National League. Right now, You have the Brewers, Phillies, and Dodgers as your division winners. And for the wild card, you have the Cubs, Padres, and Mets in that order. So because the Brewers and the Phillies are the two best division winners, they get that wild card round, best 2 out of 3, off. So now you have the wild card round, the two matchups, Dodgers, Cubs, Padres, and Mets. You have those 4 teams. How they match up? The Dodgers are the worst of the division winners right now, so they would face the worst wild card team, the third wild card team. That would be the Mets. And since the Dodgers are the division winner, that best 2 out of 3 would all be played in LA. So that's your one matchup. All games played in LA, best 2 out of 3, Dodgers and Mets. And the other matchup would be wild card team number 1, the Cubs, and wild card team number 2, the Padres. So it would be those two teams, best 2 out of 3, in Chicago, because Chicago's the first wild card team. So even doing that with the National League example, if you happen to be a National League team fan, regardless of which team you specifically root for, if you happen to be in the National League, I wanted to provide that as an example too, in case that helped to make things easier. If you're not even a Yankee fan listening to the show, which I thank you even more so if that's the case, because the show is called Yapping Yankees. What are you doing here if you're not a Yankee fan? But I do welcome all fans, and I would really appreciate you listening to a show about a team that you don't even root for. That means the world to me. Thank you so, so much. But if that helps to provide further clarity as to how this whole thing works with the third wild card being introduced a couple of years ago, then I hope that that helped you even more. So for those who are confused, there you go. Hopefully you got a good grip on it now. You will have to know that in the near future anyway, since the playoffs are not far away. We will be talking about them beginning within the next 3 weeks. It is that close. Wild to think about. So that's how things would look if the season ended today. Obviously, there is still quite a bit more to go. 19 games, at least for the Yankees, to be exact. And those games contain, right now, 3 against the Tigers, which we talked about. 3 against the Red Sox at Fenway next weekend, which we talked about. Then I minorly mentioned the other opponents the Yankees would see for the rest of the way out. But then they see the Twins for 3 after they see the Red Sox. Then they head off to Baltimore for a 4-game set in a couple of weekends. Then they see the White Sox for 3 games. And then the Orioles for 3 games once more at Yankee Stadium the weekend of the 26th, 27th, and 28th. And then that's the end of the season, guys. That's it. The wild card rounds begin 2 days after that on Tuesday the 30th. Insane. Let's stay focused on this past week. The Yankees went over to Houston. I was pretty nervous about how they would play there. I do believe the Yankees should have had the edge, honestly. But I've thought that about the Yankees in a lot of series throughout this weekend and then was morbidly disappointed, so I didn't want to get ahead of myself. They did end up having the edge. Things were pretty out of hand in this series, to be honest. It kind of felt like it was the Yankees against the Astros and the umpires, or should I say one... how do I put this without cursing? One, just inexcusably... It's really tough because I've really almost never seen a performance as pitiful as the ones that we saw from Brian Walsh in this series, and there was a whole thing even made about him because people found out that he was a Red Sox fan and a Dodger fan, so people got to talking about that, a bunch of things swirling around the internet. But regardless, to say it was a putrid performance by him, and the umpires too, I mean, there was a call particularly on the final game on Thursday, I believe it was, that they could have all gotten together and overturned, and they all did get together, but they didn't overturn it. So, I mean, the others could have had even better views and nothing was done about it. So all of them really, but particularly Brian Walsh. I mean, when an umpire has a performance like this, or just performances, plural, like this, especially when it actually affects the outcome of a game like it did with the Yankees and the Astros on Wednesday, where the Yankees lost by 1 run, and it was factually and statistically reported on the umpires' official scorecards that they do on social media every day to grade umpire performances for each game throughout baseball. It was actually proven that Brian Walsh's piss-poor calls actually resulted in the Astros being granted a little bit more than a run in the game. So when that happens, and let's say just in this case, I think it was around like 1.16 or 1.14 something runs granted to a team, and it was a one-run game, the umpire has officially affected the actual outcome of the game. And that should result, in my opinion, in an immediate suspension with no pay. Problem is, things like this will never happen to umpires because they are protected by their ironclad union. Just like the players have a union, and a very strong one at that, so do the umpires, unfortunately in that case, at least. So as long as the umpires' union is around, nothing will ever be done as these guys somehow and incomprehensibly continue to just get worse and worse at their jobs every single year. And it is baffling, mind-boggling. Just when you think it can't get any worse from season to season, they just never cease to surprise you. But then at the same time, is it really much of a surprise after all the things we've seen at this point if you've been watching for years, just watching these guys just stumble through games every single season, just making calls that I feel a blind man wouldn't be making with no accountability or punishment to follow? It truly is unbelievable. The balls and strikes, even the calls in the field. I mean, look on Thursday. The Ryan McMahon play. Inexcusable. Inexcusable. It just continues to get worse and worse. And I'm sorry, if they're not going to be held accountable by Major League Baseball, and if their union is going to protect them from any ounce of punishment that could possibly be levied against them, and nobody's going to ever abolish their union, I'm not saying they deserve pure harassment or death threats or anything that extreme, but they definitely deserve to be ragged on. They do. They deserve for people to get on them for it. They really, really do. They're not paying for it in any other way, and they are paid. You could look it up for yourself if you don't believe me. Major League Baseball umpires, they are compensated very, very well to be the best of the best in the world at their job. Making calls in baseball at the professional level, in the most professional setting for baseball in the world, Major League Baseball. They are paid very well to do so. I don't have any sympathy for them. I know people have bad days, but my God, some of these calls, they cannot be written off as having a bad day, number one. And number two, it is very hard to sympathize when, especially if you're a regular person out there, and all of us, you want to talk about how it is in the real world, well, then this qualifies as well. We all usually have to answer to somebody and possibly even accept a harsh penalty, possibly even the termination of employment, depending on the severity of your mistake. We all have to face these things in everyday life, or these potential possibilities in the real world if you happen to mess up. These are not things that umpires, at least at the professional level in Major League Baseball, which is the group I'm talking about here in the first place, ever have to face. If you want to compare it to the real world and real world scenarios, well, then two can play at that game. I can play at it too. They don't have to face nearly the penalties or the potential possibilities that the everyday person has to face out there. So it's just not a good example to use when defending umpires, to be really frank about it. These guys get away with murder, and they never have to face penalty. Maybe a slap on the wrist by somebody, but never actually any penalty physically. Termination of employment, suspension, with or without pay, nothing. They just get to go on doing their jobs every single day as if nothing just happened and they got a 10 out of 10 on their scorecards every day. Nothing happens. And that's what pisses people off. If there were penalties for it, I think people would care a lot less. Still get frustrated in the moment, of course, especially if it's just an egregious call. But I think people would be able to stomach it better if they knew that there was punishment for them to follow. And there isn't. So people go to the extremes. They find pictures on somebody. They find legitimate background information on them, like people did in 2 seconds with Brian Walsh this past week, finding out he's a Red Sox fan, a Dodgers fan, this and that, where he lived, what he did. Listen, eventually it gets to a point where it's crossing a bit of a line. I agree. And like I said, there is a line that you don't cross as a fan. But ragging on them, calling them out, it's fair game, guys. If there's going to be no penalties for these guys, just at the utmost of incompetence like you've never seen before, it's fair game. I'm sorry. It's fair game. To rag on them and call them out is fair game. And they deserved it this past week, man. And I know it's weird to be getting frustrated about this, even though the Yankees happen to have a good week, so I'll get accused of complaining again like I often am on Twitter. It's just really funny. You get the reputation of complaining because you put out a couple of tweets maybe throughout an entire week, just talking about something you don't like. It's like, man, do you ever not complain? Well, actually, yeah, I do. It's just a matter of when I do put out complaint tweets, a lot of people happen to agree with them because I tell it like it is. And because that happens to be the case, those tweets usually get big numbers. And big numbers means more exposure, which means more people seeing it and more frequently, i.e. you, if you're one of the people calling me a complainer out there. You probably see those tweets more often on your algorithm because of that. So you happen to see that maybe, and that's all that you see from my profile, but you don't see the other things. So no, I am not always a complainer whatsoever. I do definitely complain sometimes. Who the hell doesn't? Especially when you have high expectations for your team and they don't meet them, let alone exceed them. And that threshold is, less tolerant against Yankee fans because people consider us spoiled. I get that. But that's not always the case. I just tell it like I see it. I do get very happy about a lot of things. I was very happy with how the Yankees did this past week. This does not mean that blatant... I think it's fair to call Brian Walsh an atrocity from this past week or anything like that. Shouldn't be called out. It's not what that means. Both can happen at the same time, and you could still be happy overall. That's basically how it is. But I know a lot of people are not capable of that kind of critical thinking. So I know I have to explain that like I'm talking to a child. Not to sound condescending, but it is really annoying how you constantly have to just explain that sort of basic nature to people. I would think that comes firsthand, but I guess not. Everybody's different. I keep on having to remind myself of that. So whatever. If you don't understand that concept, then I hope I was able to effectively explain it to you just now. But that's the deal. I was still very happy, but that was something that I felt the need to get off my chest as far as the umpiring is concerned. I have dedicated much of my time on this show for years now to ripping umpires to absolute shreds. And I'll continue to do it as long as they continue to be the way that they are and get worse and worse with each passing season. I don't care. I'll keep doing it. But it's just something that I felt the need to mention again here because this past week it warranted mentioning again. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse as to how brutal umpires are. I think we all get the point. It just had to be mentioned this time, though. If you watched the nightmare known as Brian Walsh this past week in Houston, then you know what I'm talking about. You understand the need to bring it up. As far as the actual games are concerned, good stuff, man. The Yankees really came out strongly and confidently with a big statement to start this 2-week stretch of really important games in that first game in Houston. They came out strong. 7-1 victory. Nothing was ever really close. You felt like the Yankees were dominating and in control the entire time. And it honestly felt like a very easy and comfortable win. The offense doing what they had to do, particularly Jazz, Trent. They did what they had to do, those two in particularly. And you had Fried out there pitching a very nice game. 7 innings of 1-run ball. Started things very nicely, and that's that. Unfortunately, on Wednesday, the Yankees, they had a tough time because on this particular day, they didn't have this problem on Thursdays, despite the matchup being the same. But on Wednesday, it's tough to do 2 days in a row to defeat your opponent and the umpires. It's tough to do once, let alone twice. So couldn't quite accomplish it on Wednesday. That was when Walsh was behind the plate. But then Thursday, they were able to do it, which makes things even better. And things got a little nerve-wracking towards the end, but they managed to get the job done and win 2 out of 3. Toronto, I mean, when they came back home, and I don't want to use this as an excuse, but even some players' wives, Ashley Rodon, Carlos Rodon's wife in particularly, talking about how they just wondering why Major League Baseball kept Thursday's game in Houston a night game, which had the Yankees arriving back in New York for the start of the Toronto series Friday extremely late, like really late into the middle of the night. And they probably felt zombie-ish on Friday, not using it as an excuse. A lot of teams fall victim to this throughout their schedules, and some are unaffected by it. But I also hear a lot of complaining about it, so maybe Major League Baseball should do something about that when they're scheduling games. I do know that in a lot of other situations throughout the season for the Yankees and others, I mean, they do tend on having the final games of each series day games. I don't know what was different about this. They kept it a night game. It's a little weird. But Ashley Rodon and maybe even some other people were not too happy about it, and they did come out like people were expecting after a scenario like that on Friday, so that game was not ideal. They lost that game by the same score they won the first Houston game, 7-1, and just never seemed in reach. Giancarlo's solo shot was the only sign of life they had. And then you had Cam Schlittler out there who just had a miserable outing, only an inning and 2/3, allowing 4 runs, 5 hits, 2 walks, striking out 2. But he got a lot of hitters to 2 strikes, but the Blue Jays were patient. Schlittler just couldn't put anybody away. Some of his pitches looked really good. They just weren't biting at a lot of things, and he could not put people away. It just got away from him. Everybody in the bullpen after that allowed at least a run. Yarbrough, Leiter Jr., and Duvall, who was just, as we talked about last week, has been an absolute nightmare here, but was just never a game the Yankees were going to win. But then the last 2 days, they managed to come back and make the best of it and get the wins. Yesterday, through some really bad weather and a long rain delay, won 3-1, and then winning 4-3 today. So while we're on that, just because of how the show happens to be flowing, sometimes you just, go with the flow and adjust on the fly. Why don't we just hit on weekly recap real quick since we're talking about the contents of the games from this past week. Yapping Yankees Time Machine. Let's go.
This is where the fun begins.
Yeah, no argument here, Anakin. This past week was definitely mostly fun. Mostly. But Tuesday, like I said, it got started really nicely. Like I said before, Fried, 7 innings of 1-run ball, 5 strikeouts, 3 walks, 4 hits. Very nicely done. And since the Yankees were up big, it just allowed Paul Blackburn to come in and nicely get the job done with 2 shutout innings ultimately. And as I said before, the offense was all Jazz and Trent. That was the offense. Top of the second, Jazz 2-run shot for his 27th home run of the year. I can't believe Jazz has that many home runs this year. It's crazy. That made it 2-0. And then Trent Grisham, I have said many times how big of fans my family and I are of this guy. And he made us even prouder this past week, starting with this very swing here, up 2-0 in Houston. Guy hits a freaking nuke for a grand slam. 29th home run of the year. I believe it's his 3rd grand slam this year.
Holy crap!
You're not kidding, Frank Barone. Here you go. Listen for yourself. I actually have the clip from it for you. And this audio is obviously courtesy of the S Network.
High fly ball. Altuve back on the track, looking up. See ya! A grand slam for Grisham. His magical season continues. It's 6-0 Yanks.
Yeah, that's not an exaggeration. The magical season has continued for him. The fact that he has 30-plus home runs when in the past he had never even hit 20 in a regular season before is bonkers. It's just insane. So that grand slam put them up 6-0. And then Jazz, just to add insult to injury, I guess, in the top of the 8th, hit another solo shot, or another home run, rather, for a solo shot. His 28th of the year, made it 7-1 at the time, and that was the final. Like I said, very strong start to the series. The Yankees hope to keep the same going into Game 2 on Wednesday, and they actually did at first. Starting the game was Will Warren, and things were going very well up until the middle of the game in the 5th inning, really. His first 4 were nice, but the Yankees got it started right away with Giancarlo homering in the top of the 2nd. Solo shot made it 1-0. It was past the train tracks, I think. It was an absolute atom bomb. And then Austin Wells, who had himself a nice series, top of the 4th, 2-run shot, his 20th of the year, was hitting pretty well a bunch of days ago. Now he's gone back to sleep, I think, for the most part. He had a couple sac flies yesterday, I think, but other than that, mostly gone back to sleep. But 20th home run here, 2-run shot, made it 3-0. And then the Astros got on the board in the bottom of the 5th on a sac fly, made it 3-1. So it really wasn't until the 6th inning where things began to unravel a bit. But when the Yankees were up 3-1, they did add on one more on a sac fly by Ryan McMahon. In the bottom of the 6th, Jeremy Pena would hit a solo shot that made it 4-2. So that was really the end of Warren's outing. So it didn't go too deep, but had himself a fine outing. 5 innings, only 2 runs allowed and no walks. That's big for him. 4 strikeouts. Did give up quite a bit of hits. 5 hits and that 1 home run to Pena, but I take that star from Warren. It's not bad at all. Things just really started to unravel towards the end. That's when things really got bad. But when the Yankees were up 4-2, then Ground up by Altuve, drove home another run with Cruz in the game. That made it 4-3. So at this point, just getting a little bit uneasy about the game, how things were going, really. And then in the bottom of the 7th, with Weaver on the mound, unfortunately, Luke Weaver, who these days we've become accustomed to calling Nuke Weaver, didn't give up a nuke in this case, but he allowed the Astros to tie the game. Yordan Alvarez, RBI single. And Giancarlo had a throwing error out in left field as well. They had him out in left since it was easier ground to cover than right field in Houston, since he's been playing the field lately, as we know. So heading into the 8th inning, the game was tied. Yankees did not score in the top half. Bottom 8th is when everything unraveled. This was when Brian Walsh, after already having had a brutal game behind the plate, but it wasn't as paid attention to as it was from this point forward, because this was the pivotal point of the game, obviously, so everything is concentrated on a bit more strongly. So Devin Williams was in the game, just wasn't locating well. It was just a disaster. Bad calls by Walsh, Devin not doing what he was supposed to do, Boone keeping him in the game much longer than he should have. Just a bunch of factors coming all together to create a really ugly inning. And then when he was finally removed from the game, Camilo Duvall comes in, and it's just an absolute disaster when he comes in, because then when the Yankees had already lost the lead with Devin and a lot more runs charged to him, I think ultimately he had 4 runs charged to, 4 runs charged to him. Some of it is Duvall's fault because a couple of runs scored with him in the game after he came in for Devin, but, I mean, Devin deserved it. Yeah, a part of it was definitely the umpire. A lot of people were trying to assign blame solely to Boone or solely to Devin or solely to the umpire. Why can't everything just be true? It was all their faults. Boone for caring more about Devin's personal feelings and his confidence rather than winning a game in crunch time towards the end of the year here in a playoff race. Devin for just continuing to be ass. And Brian Walsh just missing call after 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 call. Missing calls constantly. I'm glad you find that so funny. So when all was said and done, then Camilo Duvall comes in, he balks, and then throws a wild pitch. So that allows a 7th and 8th run to score. Top of the 9th comes around, things get interesting. Cody hits his 27th home run of the year, a 3-run shot to make it 8-7. Now it's a 1-run game. Unfortunately, the Yankees would lose after that. But now, since it was a 1-run game, a lot of people were interested in seeing the umpire's scorecard the following day with Brian Walsh, which is what I was talking about before. Because everyone was thinking with how putrid of a performance he had, especially in that 8th inning, that pivotal inning, it had to have affected the game, and it did. He had favored Houston with his calls by over a run, a little bit over a run, and of course it was a 1-run game. So welcome to the umpire show yet again, ladies and gentlemen. They ultimately factually affected the outcome of a baseball game. And a very important one at that for both teams. Because a lot of people might forget, but this is important for the Astros too, because they're trying to hold on to first place. Seattle's not far behind them. Not that I care about the Astros, but I'm just saying from their perspective, trying to be an objective person here, which I always am. I try to be. So just being honest, they're in a bit of a race themselves too. And Texas is not too far behind the Mariners too, as we know. So very important game all around towards the end of the season here. And you have a choke fest like this behind the plate. Inexcusable. So really rough game to swallow there. Taking action again on Thursday. Fortunately, things went better this time around, although it did seem to be following a bit of a similar trend. It was kind of weird. But the Yankees did ultimately get it done after it was a little weird early on. But starting this game was Carlos Rodon. He went out there, did his thing, allowed 2 runs, 1 of them earned. Struck out 3, walked 2, and only allowed 3 hits in 6 innings. Got the win for his efforts on the day. He's 16-7 on the season with a 3.12 ERA. Good for Carlos Rodon, man. Good for him. Truly. I mean, just a great season. Really solid. So while he and the remainder of the Yankees pitchers, those pitchers being Weaver, Cruz, and Bednar, especially Cruz and Bednar, just warriors, man. Absolute warriors. While they were all doing their thing, the offense got to work early. Ryan McMahon, surprising to everybody, but he got an RBI single in the top of the second, put the Yankees up 1-0. Alvarez tied the game off Rodon as one earned run for his start. In the bottom of the third, solo shot made it 1-1. Then, against everybody's expectations, Ryan McMahon stepped up to the plate in the top of the fifth and hit a solo shot, his 19th home run of the year, putting the Yankees back up 2-1. So both runs from Ryan McMahon, who has hit terribly as a Yankee so far, as we know for the most part. But in this game, he's making his mark, and that's always welcome considering his fantastic defense, as we know. At least he's providing something, unlike some other players. I think we all know who I'm talking about. Anyway, at least he's doing something good. So whenever he happens to supply us with some offense, that's just an added bonus, to be honest. Cody added on with an RBI single, and Caballero walked at the bases loaded to make it 4-1. And then after that, the Astros did score a run after a throwing error by Caballero. That made it 4-2, and it drove home Alvarez. It was really weird. Ben Rice had a lot of trouble at first in this game, like a lot of trouble. Just dropped the ball straight to him, a throw like right to him. And I think that ball was actually by McMahon, speaking of him. And then he dug a ball out of the dirt, like a really tough scoop play on a brutal throw by Anthony Volpe, saving him from yet another error. And then on this one, this throw by Caballero trying to finish off a double play, I believe it was. Wasn't the best throw, for sure. It definitely wasn't. But it was a throw that very well could have been caught. Much easier than Volpe's, at least. So I was like, man, he's having a strange day over there at first base. But anyway, ball got away from him there. It's 4-2. And then they crept even closer after a home run by Jesus Sanchez. So that made it 4-3 Yankees. And this is when it felt really similar to the night prior, like the Astros are slowly creeping closer. But then the Yankees fortunately took control after that. Ryan McMahon, again, RBI single. 3 runs on the night for him. That's really nice, honestly, and completely unexpected from him. But again, especially considering his defense, nice added bonus. And then Trent Grisham, again, after that, with his 30th bomb of the year, by far career high in a single season. 30th bomb of the year, 3-run shot. Put the Yankees ahead confidently, 8-3. Bottom of the ninth, Bednar struggled a little bit, but ultimately he got the job done. Yankees win 8-4 after he had only allowed a run, did Bednar, and they win 2 out of 3 in Houston. It was very nerve-wracking at the end, but the job got done. Yankees leave Houston on a high note. Very late at night, but still on a high note to head back to New York and face the Blue Jays the very next day on Friday, which is when they had that rough game. Just started off badly from the beginning. Schlittler gave his line earlier, just couldn't put anybody away, and the Blue Jays got to work instantly. RBI double by Bichette, 2-run single by Nathan Lukes. After that, made it 3-0 in the first instantly, and they added on even more with a Bichette sac fly in the top of the second. Giancarlo solo shot his 19th of the year already in the short time that he's played. In 25, just continues to be unbelievable. Slowed down a bit there, but he's still just hitting very well overall. That one run, when they were down 4-1 at that point, was the only run they'd score. Vlad, who had himself just a murderous series, except for the very end there. We didn't come up clutch at the end of today's game, but before that, just an epic series. I think it was like 8 for 12 going into that at-bat with Devin Williams at the end of today's game. Just insane. This was one of them. Solo shot, made it 5-1, and then they added on 2 more in the 8th and 9th innings. 7-1 the final. Yankees never stood a chance in this game. Yesterday was interesting, too, as I said, because I had to battle some bad weather as well. But Luis Gil was on the mound, and other than walking 4, just getting a little wild at times like he tends to do. We all know Gil has the tendency to do that. But otherwise, just he only did get 1 strikeout as well, which is unusual for him. The Blue Jays don't strike out very much, though, as we know, and they're a very patient team, so that's not surprising in that light. But Gil is typically a higher strikeout guy. But he still got the job done. Only 1 run and 3 hits in 6 innings pitched, would get the win on the day, and his ERA is down to 3.31. Not too shabby at all for him. Looking better and better each time he goes out there since he got back from his months-long injury. So that's good to see. And the bullpen would nail it down after he was done. Nobody allowed a run between Weaver, Cruz, and Bednar after he was done. And the offense got to work right away. Jason Dominguez, bottom of the second, RBI single. Wells sack fly right after that. He would end up having another sack fly in the bottom of the sixth to put them up 3-1 after the long rain delay. And that was that. 3-1 was the final. So Wells, 2 sack flies. Jason, nice to see him back out there getting some work done. RBI single. Heel nicely done. Bullpen wrapped it up. You always have to hold your breath for that part, so that's nice to see that got done. Weaver got 2 outs. Cruz got pitched an inning, and then Bednar got the last 4 outs for his 21st save of the year. And then that would lead them into today. And the Yankees did get things kicked off again today with Fried on the mound. Ben Rice, 3-run shot to open up the scoring, his 23rd of the year. Really is unbelievable. You go down up and down the Yankee lineup. Grisham, 30 home runs. Judge, I think he's still at 43. Yep, he is. So you have Judge at 43. Bellinger is at 27. He's also about to hit 90 RBIs, which is crazy. Ben Rice has 23 bombs. Goldschmidt only has 10, but also he's a special circumstance. Hasn't really been at full health lately. We'll get to that in a bit. Stanton has 19 home runs in less than 200 at-bats. Just insane. So he'll definitely hit at least 20 before the end of the year. Absolutely. Jazz, I mean, it's insane to say 28 home runs. Certain other aspects of his game that annoy some people, including myself at times. I get that, but 28 home runs. Even Wells has 20 home runs, which is nice to see. His offense certainly gets on my nerves plenty of times as well, but the 20 home runs, you take that, especially from a catcher. And Volpe and McMahon, the 2 worst hitters on the team, closely rivaled by Wells a lot of the time, honestly. But they are the 2 worst hitters on the team. They both have 19. So 1 home run each away from every single Yankees hitter having at least 20 bombs, except for Goldschmidt. But Goldschmidt's also sort of in a platoon area right now. As far as people who mostly get everyday reps, yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to say that. These days, I kind of struggle counting Goldschmidt like that because he's been having a little bit of health issues the last couple of weeks, and lately he's been in more of a platoon sort of role lately. So that's why I say that. But almost every Yankee hitter having 20 home runs is pretty freaking cool. But Ben continued to add on to that with his 3-run shot. Unfortunately, top of the second inning, Max Fried couldn't go out there and throw up a 0 right after he did that, so he allowed 2 runs to score, made it 3-2. And then the Yankees didn't score in the bottom half. Top of the third, they unfortunately tied the game, partially because Anthony Volpe had his 19,000th error of the year, so that definitely didn't help things at all. Made Max have to get an extra out than he already had to. So it was tied up at 3. But then, fortunately, right after that, in the bottom half of that same inning, after Vlad Guerrero Jr. had once again made his mark on another game by tying the game up, Cody stepped up to the plate after Judge reached base and got himself to second base on a stolen bag. And then Cody doubled him in on a fly ball that very nearly got out in right center field but didn't. So RBI double made it 4-3. And then from there, Fried locked the hell in. Just locked in, pitched a beautiful game after that, ended up going 7 innings, allowing just those 3 runs. 6 hits, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, getting the win on the day. ERA of 3.02 with a record of 16-5 at this point. Again, another great season. Just had that about month and a half or so, maybe 2 months where he scuffled. But he's definitely been back his last 4 starts or so. And I knew that he was going to have to hit a bump in the road eventually, so I wasn't too surprised when that happened to him for a little while there, but I was confident that he would figure it out when it really matters here down the stretch, and it's good to see him having done that for his last few times, and hopefully that continues the rest of the way out. After he was done doing that, the score remained the same, obviously. Devin Williams comes in once again. Aaron Boone just playing with fire, but fortunately this time it works out. Allowed a hit and a walk, but ultimately he escaped trouble, mostly against the heart of the Blue Jays lineup too. So again, just the planets lined up and that miraculously happened. And then in the top of the 9th, Bednar sealed it down, only allowing a hit at the time, but an inning shutout for his 22nd save. Yankees win 4-3, and like they did against Houston, won the series best 2 out of 3, going 4-2 this past week. And again, moving within 2 games of first place with 19 games left to go. Definitely very, very realistic, and is still very much in play is the division. Now, as far as what is ahead, we did mention it briefly again before. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Yankees have the day off tomorrow. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all games at 7:05 p.m. Eastern at Yankee Stadium, Yankees and Tigers. Tuesday right now, the pitching matchup is Casey Mize against Will Warren. That's the matchup Tuesday. Wednesday, you have Flaherty against Rodon. And Thursday, the pitcher for the Tigers is yet to be announced, but Schlittler will be going for the Yankees. And then Friday through Sunday, Yankees and Red Sox at Fenway Park. No pitching matchups announced as of yet, but just a couple of programming alerts. Obviously, Wednesday will be the mostly usual Prime Wednesdays. Friday's game at 7:10 Eastern at Fenway is an Apple TV Plus game, so just a notice for all of you out there. Just to not expect it to be on Yes or anywhere to access on regular television. Apple TV Plus, 7:10 p.m. Eastern, Yankees, Red Sox at Fenway on Friday. Saturday will be 4:10 p.m. Eastern. That game will be back on Yes. Again, no pitching matchup announced. Sunday, next week, once again, ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. As of now, 7:10 p.m. Eastern. No pitching matchups announced. Again, ESPN. And for the rest of the way out, I did mention it before, since the schedule and the season is so close to being over, might as well bring it up. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 15th, 16th, 17th, Yankees and Twins. Then Thursday the 18th through to Sunday the 21st, Yankees and Orioles in Baltimore. Off day Monday the 22nd. And then for the final week, Tuesday the 23rd through to Thursday the 25th, Yankees, White Sox at Yankee Stadium. And then Friday the 26th through Friday the 28th, 3-game set, Yankees and Orioles at Yankee Stadium. That's the rest of the season, guys. Pretty friggin' crazy. Now, we just talked about the games. As far as the particular players, you just go up and down the roster and you just think of how everybody's been doing. Well, lots to be said for the offense. I mean, a lot of home runs. We established that before. As far as how people have continued to do, well, Trent just continues to just slam them out of the park. He's just having a season for the ages for himself. It's just great to see. Love watching him play, and you get the good defense to go along with that. Judge, you're seeing him back in right field the last few days, and that's actually a massive topic of discussion these last couple of games. Because against the Blue Jays, he's had some throws where he'll field it, and in many cases, or basically all cases in the past where he would gun the throw to home, he's either been throwing much more softly. Usually he throws in the 90s of miles per hour, whether it be to home plate or maybe hitting the cutoff man. Regardless, throws really hard. We all know the arm that Judge has always had. Been throwing it in the 70s recently. And then a couple of times when he was expected to gun the ball home maybe for a play at the plate, he just softly hits Jazz or somebody else for cutoff, and that's it. Just really seems to be mailing it in as far as throwing it back in. And it has people concerned, and rightfully so, because you had the Yankees and Judge even himself at some point say that they didn't expect him to return to the field unless he was 100% capable of doing so. And now you're seeing him back out there, and he's clearly not 100% capable of doing so. And they went to the media and they tried to stave it off and get all defensive, saying, just trying to hit the cutoff man there and doing what we do. It's not what you do. If we're being honest, Aaron, that's not what you do. I've never seen you at any point throughout your career turn away from a big play at the plate or even a big play at another base by gunning it there. I mean, it's never been shied away from. This is the first time we've ever seen it from you, and we know you've been having arm problems for a while now. So it's obvious that he's not 100%. It's fine to admit it. I just wish they would admit it. It's just a blatant lie. It's not even just an accusation. It's based off of just watching him throughout his whole career. You know that that's the case. You just know it. So that's unfortunate. And it's not very smart. It's pretty irresponsible now that they're in crunch time heading towards the end here. I know that there's a crunch here needing both his bat, even though it hasn't been too stellar since he came back, obviously. But he's had his couple of hot streaks in the last couple of weeks, of course. But you need his bat and Stanton's bat especially still in the lineup. I know a lot of people ask me, what would you do? I would just keep on rotating them around for now. I mean, Stanton should still see the field if Judge is not in that good a shape. And I know they have their own rotation problems with the outfield still on top of that. With finding all playing time for Cody, for Trent, for Jason. I mean, for everybody. I mean, I know the complication. But just between the two of them, I mean, just keep DHing Judge for a little while longer if that's what he needs. I mean, I don't know. I understand from his perspective wanting to get back out there as soon as possible and contribute. We all know what he could do in right field. Made a nice diving catch today. Obviously, having problems with his arm doesn't affect his range. Clearly, never accused it of doing so. I'm just talking about when it comes to throwing and the rest of the ability that comes with being an outfielder. It's a concern if he can't do that nearly to the best of his ability. It is a concern, and it is a little irresponsible to force it and even possibly risk further injury by doing so here towards the end of the year when you need him most. That's all I'm saying. So they ought to proceed really carefully if what we all observe really is true, which I think it is true. He's not ready for right field. He shouldn't be out there yet. That's my opinion. You can disagree, but I think it's all but fact that he is not ready for right field yet. His range is fine. I just mean not ready for right field in the sense of throwing and using his arm, which is a big part of being the outfielder. I mean, come on. What are we talking about here? So that has me concerned, and I think it's pretty irresponsible of the Yankees, and honestly Judge himself, too, to be forcing the issue if he's not ready yet, especially after having said it wouldn't happen until it's 100% ready to go. And then I guess they go back on their word, and it's obvious he's not okay and has people worried. So that's the deal. I know a lot of other people just tell me to shut the hell up. It's none of my business, even though I'm a dedicated fan, and it's all fans' business. I mean, how we dedicate our time and money and whatnot to this team. I mean, come on. Our passion. I think we have a right to know and not be gaslighted that the Yankees get off on doing to us as often as they do. I don't think it's that outlandish of a thing to say. So I just hope that Aaron's okay and he's not forcing anything that he is pretty clearly not completely ready for yet. Because I don't think that's in the best interest of the team or himself and his own personal well-being health-wise, honestly. Just my opinion. People could disregard that or call me a fool all they want. I don't really care. That's my opinion. Cody just continues to be, fantastic. Still hovering around a 280 average. OPS in the low to mid 800s. Really closer to the mid 800s. Still playing great defense. Gunning people out at the plate or around the bases. Great arm. Great versatility. Killing it offensively. 2 for 4 today was the go-ahead run in the earlier part of the game and the final run scored throughout the game for either team. He's killing it, man. Couldn't be happier. Ben Rice, still flashing the power. He's up to 23 home runs now, average still in the 240s, but 54 RBIs, OPS in the 800s. I hope they keep on giving him catching reps. I know that they want to keep platooning at first base with Goldschmidt and whatnot, but I want Rice to see more reps at catcher because, we all know how I feel about Austin Wells. He goes on his occasional tears, and there are numbers that he has that I think are acceptable for a catcher, but overall he just... And the defense has improved. I acknowledge all of these things, but just so many aspects about his hitting and his overall approach at it, it's just so infuriating. And I'd rather see Ben Rice get those at-bats and continue to improve defensively, because I know that there's still a little bit more to be desired as far as defensively at catcher for him. But I know they really like him there too, so keep working with him. And maybe he could be the everyday catcher, Austin be his backup, or maybe split it down the middle. I don't know, just figure it out. But either way, get Ben in there more and have him get better at catcher so he's that much more reliable of a player. But, that makes his numbers even more extraordinary if he's going to be catching more. So Ben Rice, just keep on going out there doing your thing. Stanton didn't have a hit today, but still very much impressed with what he's doing. Was going over it before. He's got just under 50 RBIs, OPS just south of 1,000, 281 batting average, all in 192 at-bats. It's fantastic. He's also two home runs away from his 450th career home run, by the way, which I think is pretty cool. So keep on doing his thing. He took some weird routes and some fly balls, obviously. Didn't look too hot in left field in Houston. Obviously, left field just isn't his thing. But he looked mostly good in right field, which is what he always played in Miami primarily, as we know. So right field is clearly his strength. But he didn't look as bad in the outfield as I and many others suspected he might. I, unlike many others, did also remember and always do remember that he was once upon a time a very fine fielder in Miami. So you're not going to completely lose that. But the Yankees sentenced him to eternal DHing, so you never know what effect that might have ultimately. But he looked a little bit better than I think we all thought he would look, and his arm is still very strong out there mostly. That's really what impresses you. more so than his range or ability to run or move. But he has his aspects of the outfield that are still impressive, especially after so many years of DHing. So just keep on doing what you're doing, Giancarlo. That's what I say. Jazz, I mean, he's still the same pretty much, as I always say. His approach sometimes at the plate with just swinging for the fences constantly gets a little frustrating at times, but it does have a good success rate with him closing in on 30 home runs, so I got to give him that. 70 RBIs, closing on 30 stolen bases too, so he is really close to being 30-30. That's awesome. Batting average hovering around 240, that's fine. 826 OPS. For everything else, the 240 batting average is fine, to be honest. And he just does stupid things at second base occasionally. That's just the other mildly frustrating part. But otherwise, Jazz is Jazz. You know, it is what it is. Frustrating ball player at times, but he does have attributes to like as well. That's why I call him a confusing player sometimes. But just keep on the same track as well, especially if he's going to keep homering. That's what I say. That's the Yankees' identity, really. And then you have the bottom three. I'm really just mainly going by today's lineup for the most part, but you had Wells and Volpe and McMahon. Today they happen to go 0 for 9 with 8 strikeouts. Just a fantastic day, right? So Wells, like I said, improving defensively, always. I acknowledge that. Approach at the plate, infuriating a lot of the time, but has numbers that I'm okay with. The 710 OPS, I don't hate that. 213 average, I understand he's a catcher, but not a huge fan. 20 home runs, 65 RBIs, not bad. Not bad at all. Improved defense, like it a lot. But again, kind of another confusing ball player. More towards the aspect of frustrating, though, for sure. So that's that with him. McMahon, just keep on giving me stellar defense and a little bit of offense, maybe. Just a little bit. Because the defense is so good to the point where I guess at times you could sort of stomach the fact that you're getting little to no offense at all out of him. But some offensive contributions, like in Houston, are nice. It's nice, and it's an added bonus, clearly, when it does happen. But at the very least, just keep the lockdown defense going over there, man. On a defensively and overall fundamentally weak team throughout the vast majority of the last few years, especially in the last couple of years, particularly since the World Series of last year and all of this year, a player like McMahon to help clean that up is welcoming. Just keep that up, maybe give a little bit of offense. And well, why don't I save him for very last? I mean, Goldschmidt, too, hasn't hit too much of late, gotten too much of playing time, but he's, in the last 7 games, he's gone down again, but he's having his sort of knee issues as well, so I try to be a little more laxed with him, and plus we all know the age and everything, but still does what he does at first base, and overall his season has not been bad, it's been fine. Was very good for the first 2.5 months, I mean, better than anybody could have ever expected in their wildest imaginations. But overall, it's been fine. And he's just playing when he can. Platooning or maybe pinch hitting. Coming in as a defensive substitution. Who knows? Just depends on the day with him lately. But Goldie does what he does. And Caballero, I wish he got a lot more playing time out there at short, particularly. Because you know you're going to get better defense and at least a little bit better offense possibly, because it is basically virtually impossible to be much worse than Anthony Volpe has been, which I guess is a good way to finish off my offense recap, because my God. Again, I'm trying not to massacre this kid as much as I have, because I even did say last week I view it as more of the Yankees' fault at this point for constantly continuing to throw him out to the wolves every single day, and I still feel that way. But you still have to tell it like it is and talk about what's going on. So, I mean, do we really want to continue to go in on this? 4 for his last 25 once again. Like I said last week, people were going nuts about his mini resurgence against the White Sox, but we know that this is how Volpe goes. We know this is his pattern. We know what he is by now. I've said this many times, and I'll say it again. I said he might have been good for a couple of days against the White Sox, but then you better bear down and get ready for the next 6 for 55 stretch, because that's what he is, guys. And if you're still a believer in his, I admire you for it. I even pity you a little bit, but I urge you for your own sake and sanity to wake the hell up about it already. 8 for his last 51. Just continues to suck wind. I mean, he is just awful. He's not major league caliber at this point in time. Made another error today. He is going to make at least 20 this year with a massive defensive regression. We've spoken about it all. I mean, he is regressed even base running wise. He might not even steal 20 bases this year. And if he gets caught stealing one more time, he'll break his single season record for caught stealing as well in his first 3 seasons. He's had 7 this year, and he had 7 last year too for his highest caught stealing in a single season, 5 in his rookie year. He had 28 stolen bases last year, and with 19 games to go this year, he has 16. So he's not stealing as many bags. He's not getting on base nearly as much either. His on-base percentage, guys, oh my God. His on-base percentage is .269.
Oh my God!
Yeah. .269. His slugging, even with his 19 home runs, his slugging isn't even .400 anymore. His OPS is .665. Last year was .657 because he didn't hit nearly as many home runs. It's pretty amazing that with a 12-homer season last year and 19 this year, his OPS is only 8 points higher right now. And he has 7 more home runs in the moment than he did last year. Oh my God. And his WRC plus and his OPS plus are probably going to end up being career lows, or at least damn near close to it. So just regressing in every way possible and just going out there and managing to look worse and worse every single day, except for the very rare occasion where he will go out there and he'll be a blind squirrel and he'll find a nut once in a blue moon, and then he'll just go right back to sleep. Just when you think he might get hot, no, we've been through this enough to know that that's not the case. Flash in the pan whenever the planets happen to align, but nothing's going to come of it. Nothing. And shame on the Yankees for continuing to put him out there when they know he just doesn't have what it takes right now. Maybe not ever, but especially right now. Shame on them for not being innovative, original, new, trying something that's been proven to work, maybe giving him some reps in the minor leagues earlier on. Now you just kind of, you got to, if you're going to do anything, you're just going to bench him and play Caballero, which is what you should have done weeks ago if you're the Yankees. But when it comes to the minor league assignment, I think the time is pretty much past for that. You had your chance with that, and you just chose to be just the blockheads that you are, just as stubborn as anything. It's just amazing how they'll go to bat for, like, clearly the players who just don't have what it takes and are not cut out for this. They will do everything they can for those kinds of guys. But then, the other guys who are out there just playing their asses off, they're just coming up with excuses to give them the next day off. It's a trend we've seen for years for the Yankees, and they'll use the excuse, and to a degree it's valid, but it's also their own fault at that, not being able to properly construct a roster without log jamming it. They'll use the excuse of having to rotate guys out, and there are a lot of guys doing well, so you got to do the rotation, get guys their reps and everything, which is also, again, their own fault. It's good to have depth, but there's a line between depth and logjam. Not always the easiest thing to assemble, but with the Yankees' financials and their resources, you would think that they're a little bit better at it from year to year than they are, but again, discussions for another day. But now they have another option for someone who's clearly not cut out for this, at least right now. Before they acquired him at the deadline, it was a little bit trickier because you only had another option like Oswald Peraza, who clearly also did not have what it takes, would probably even somehow be even worse. But you went out and got Caballero at the deadline. You now have another valid replacement for Volpe at short, and you just won't do it. You won't do it. They will not budge for anyone or anything, or even themselves, for the betterment of their own team. They will not budge on this kid. They just won't. It's amazing. It's absolutely remarkable. He'll probably hit 20 home runs, yeah, and that's the ammunition people use. Oh my God, 19 home runs and the 70 RBIs. That's a career high. All right. Given everything else, you're really going to use that? Like, If everything else was at least serviceable or all right, then yeah, maybe you use that. But I mean, it's been so ugly that you really think there's anything that you could say to redeem what has been? I mean, good for him. Whatever. 20 home runs, many of them way earlier in the year and happen to come in big moments with a lot of runners on base, which, yeah, clutch is definitely an aspect of it and deserves to have credit given for it, and I did at the time. But at this point, like, really?
Screw you.
Honestly, yeah. And screw the Yankees, too, for doing this to this kid. I can only be harsh solely towards him and blame him totally for so long before it becomes a much bigger issue of the team just blatantly doing wrong by somebody. And they are. They have been for months, let alone lately. And it needs to continue to be called out. Especially because of some recent numbers. Guys, listen to this. And these are stats given out by @Yanks Superfan on Twitter. I want to give credit where credit is due always. You know that. So shout out to him. Go give him a follow @Yanks Superfan. But he gave out this stat on Volpe. Since August 15th, listen to this. And August 15th was what, 3.5 weeks ago now? So it's almost a month. It's pretty sizable sample size. He has a 136 average. On-base percentage, 147. 242 slugging, 389 OPS. There are some players with higher on-base percentages than that, an OPS. On-base is one part of OPS. And there are many with either of those stats, slugging and on-base, higher than that combined number. And his WRC plus. Now, let me put this into perspective for you. 100 for that, in case you don't already know. I've spoken about this statistic many times on the show. For those who don't have a great memory, like me, or have maybe just never heard of it, if you're new to it, 100 is average. His WRC plus since August 15th is -1.
Oh no!
Another Joseph Joestar sound effect coming in the clutch. Another one for the Arsenal. But yeah, -1 WRC plus. Now, I consider myself to be fairly knowledgeable in this statistic, but one thing that I didn't even know is that even if it's from a sample size of only a few weeks, I truly didn't even know that it was possible for this statistic to even be in the negative. I didn't know that was possible. I mean, 100 is average. 100. And even piss-poor players will find themselves like 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, like anything below 100, below average. -1?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
This isn't major league caliber, guys. These are the kind of things that the Yankees continue on a daily basis as they continue to run him out there and throw him to the wolves. These are the things that they are continuously neglecting on a daily basis. So yeah, keep calling them out on it. Shame on the Yankees for forcing something that this kid clearly is just not prepared for on him. Shame on them. I'll keep saying that as the weeks go on and he continues to be an absolute disgrace out there. Keep neglecting the fact that he's entirely in his head. Keep neglecting how quickly his hips just fly completely open, which every single person on the face of the earth seems to see except for the team itself. And keep neglecting how obviously uncomfortable he is even out in the field, which was never even an issue for him before this season. At least not nearly on this level. Just keep neglecting all of it, because at the end of the day, Yankees, it's only hurting you. It's hurting our eyeballs and our blood pressure too, but it's mostly hurting you. So that's that. So that's really the offense. And Jason Dominguez, obviously, he's not getting many looks now because it's hard. Trent kicks ass at the plate. Good defender. Huge clutch player, too. Same thing with Bellinger, kicking ass. Great defense, a lot of versatility. Judge is working his way back into the outfield as well, and he and Stanton may flip-flop, and Stanton may DH or get some outfield reps, but Stanton, you need his bat in the lineup, and same thing with Judge, as he continues to hopefully keep improving. We know what the numbers have been since his injury, haven't been great, but you want to keep him out there and keep getting those reps, especially as the end is coming around for the season. And it's tough to find playing time for Jason. It sucks, it's unfortunate. But Jason also isn't really blowing anybody's hair back. He's not having a bad year. but he's not blowing anyone's hair back. And it's not enough to outdo anybody else getting most of the reps right now. So that's just the kind of the position he finds himself in. Starting rotation, honestly, I mean, Fried's been back. We've established that, and he's been just overall in the season, huge savior. Substitute ace this year with Cole down, obviously, and he has done a very good job at it. And Rodon's been fantastic being his backup. They both have 16 wins. Rodon's ERA is only ever so slightly higher. It's good to have Heel back and seeing him figure it out as the starts go along and continue to get his wildness a bit more under control. Warren's got to keep on chipping away at it. I mean, we have mostly seen him for the last couple of months be more effective. Just should maybe work on continuing to walk less guys and continue to go deeper into games. He does have 153 strikeouts on the year. That is really cool for him in 141 innings. So the strikeout numbers are there too. And his ERA is heading towards the low fours. Much worse at the beginning of the year. Last couple of months, we've seen a lot to like, and at a couple of times throughout that time as well, we've seen a couple of things that he still needs to work at and continue developing at. And we'll see if he does, but keep working at it. That's what I say right now. He really has pitched most of the year, though, so it's good for him. He really has had the vast majority of an entire season under his belt. So this is a good round of experience for him in 2025. And then you have Cam Schlittler nicely rounding it out since he was called up. And I know that he really couldn't retire anybody against the Blue Jays, but he also had been so good that he was due for a stinker. It just sucks it has to be now in crunch time like this and in that important of a game. They did end up winning the next two this weekend, of course, so it didn't end up being that catastrophic of a deal. But you just see he has some stuff to still polish. He's still brand new here. So as he continues to polish his already disgusting stuff, I still anticipate huge things out of him going forward. He has enormous potential. I've said that about him many times, and I'll continue to. So just keep on going with him, and I expect huge things out of him going forward as he continues to polish his stuff. Breaking stuff is disgusting, throws a hell of a heater for a fastball, obviously. Just keep working at it. And the bullpen, I'm in a state of mind right now where I have really three arms that I really, really trust. Two that I almost unconditionally trust, but three that I really trust. I love Tim Hill. We know that. I think we could trust him. I do like Tim, so that's one. And the other two have just proven, especially lately, to be absolute warriors. And those two are Fernando Cruz and David Bednar. Bednar's allowed his runs every once in a while, particularly the first night that he pitched here right after he was acquired at the deadline. That was the biggest blemish on his Yankee time. But otherwise, he has had many more than 3-out saves. He has gone out there and just been an absolute bull. And he has pitched very well, mostly with the Yankees. Very, very well. And he's proven to be a very effective closer here, as he was in Pittsburgh. So those three, I am very confident in. If they can work on maybe getting more than 3 outs every once in a while, I just need Yankee pitchers once October comes around, depending on the positioning they're in and what they're doing, whatever. I need Yankee pitchers to go maybe just like 5 2/3, 6 innings as often as they can. Because with those three in the back end, I'm pretty confident. And then naturally, like sometimes they'll have their bad days. They're still human beings. I get it. They're not always going to be effective. And then others who I don't trust naturally as human beings will also have their good days. It goes both ways. I understand that. But for the most part, with those three, if Yankee pitchers, starting pitchers, could just do that, and the offense can keep doing what it's been doing for most of the season, being much of the reason the Yankees have as many wins as they do in the first place, I will feel pretty friggin' good about things. Pretty friggin' good. The rest of the bullpen, I am shaky on. I mean, they still give me heart attacks. Luke Weaver, I wish I could say he's still in the group of trust. I still involve him in that just for the sake of giving him chances, but he has not been the same pitcher this year as effectively as he was before. His numbers aren't brutal, especially as far as ERA. It's still not brutal, so I may sound a bit spoiled there. I'm just saying compared to past Weaver the last couple of years, he hasn't quite been that Weaver. There has been a step down, especially since he had that injury months ago. There's been a step down. So if Weaver can continue to work on himself and continue to get at least some semblance back of the older Luke Weaver when he was just a guarantee with the Yankees, then being able to add him as a fourth name back, and he's kind of there, but it's tough right now. I'd love to be able to have him for a fourth name, though, because the bullpen, as we know, I mean, as many reliable names as they can have, I'm down for it. So that'd be awesome. But Cruz is just, he's pitched very often lately. He's so amped up whenever he pitches. His pitches have been as disgusting as ever. Like that splitter that struck out Altuve the other night the thing disappeared. Like, where did it actually go? It's like it just went into a portal and vanished. Gone. Making a hitter like that look as foolish as that, I mean, just disgusting, his stuff. Absolute filth. And I love that. He was so amped up. Like, fire me the hell up, dude. So between him, Bednar, even Hill, and if Weaver can continue to work his way back there, I'd love to be able to say that. The rest of them, I guess, just middle guys. I like Yarbrough for long relief, and he was obviously mostly really, really good, much better than anticipated when he had to fill in that spot in the rotation months ago. So I guess if you absolutely need him, he could be in the trust as well, but those main guys, particularly and especially Cruz and Bednar. And as much as I wish Duvall could be there and the expectations I had for him, he just continues to be a nightmare here, obviously. I hope that changes in what little time we have left, but I don't know. It's been really rough with him. So the bullpen, a lot of the time, is still nerve-wracking, but I do have my group of trust there, and I hope it stays that way or maybe even improves as we get closer to the end. So that's the analysis on the team, guys. As far as any news that's happened, I did mention last week that rosters were getting ready to expand since the next day after we spoke was September 1st, and on Monday they did. No one was expecting anything major, really. We spoke all about that. Everybody was holding their breaths for Spencer Jones or something else massive. I was just urging, along with other Yankee officials like Brian Hoke and many others who were tweeting the same thing as he did, not to expect anything major. Just names mentioned coming back from their rehab assignments like Yarbrough and Slater, for instance, and that is basically exactly what happened. Yarbrough returned Monday from his injury. I mean, you just heard me say that he pitched over this past week, as you probably saw yourself. But he returned Monday, and Slater returned just a couple of days ago. J.C. Escarra just occupied the 28th spot for a couple of days when rosters expanded until Slater was ready. And Brent Hedrick, he also started a rehab assignment with AAA a few days ago, too, on Thursday. He should be back at some point within the next week or a week and a half or something, depending on how that rehab assignment goes. As far as anybody else sidelined with injuries at the moment, with any updates who actually have a chance of returning before the season ends in like 3 weeks. Goldschmidt, as I briefly mentioned earlier, he actually underwent an MRI with some of that knee pain that's been still giving him trouble for a couple of weeks now, and he was diagnosed with a low-grade knee sprain recently, and he did pinch hit today like we've seen him, so he should be back regularly like any day now. Doesn't seem to be really a big deal there since he's still getting reps out there every once in a while. So other than that, really, slow week. Roster and injury news-wise, guys, which is always good for injuries at least. Less news or things happening there, the better, obviously. Everyone else on the injury list for now is obviously done for at least until next year. Cole, Cousins, Waldo, Hampton, Loaizaga, if he's even back. I mean, you get it. So very quickly and efficiently done. That's it for the roster and injury news. As far as the social media segment, I did say I would be back with one, and I did post one last minute earlier today for the first time in, I honestly don't even know how long. I actually put up a 3-hour-long poll for you guys to answer based off of what's to come and what the outlook of everything is since the Yankees actually managed to have a good first week of their 2 weeks of very important matchups that started last week and will conclude after their series in Boston next weekend. And with the outlook of everything the way it currently is right now, the poll question was, after taking the series against the Jays now, the Yankees are only 2 games behind first. Do you think they'll win the division? And if you want, after voting on said poll, give some thoughts if you'd like. So I give 3 choices. Yes, no, Or since the important matchups aren't completely done yet with the Tigers and the Red Sox still to come, and the Red Sox are a big determining factor of it, obviously, especially pertaining to who wins second place in the East and thereby probably the first wild card. That'll depend on where things are played, how things are played. So a lot of that rides on this. So the third choice because of that was waiting another week. And out of the three choices, it was a very short poll, and it was right after the game was over, very last minute before I started recording. So, of the votes that did come in, 38% voted yes, they will win the division. 26% said no. And then the other 36%, just 2% behind the choice of yes voting-wise, contained people saying that they're just waiting another week before saying so. And that's completely fair because, to be honest, that's kind of where I am. There are a lot of factors going on here. Obviously, like I said, the Yankees and Red Sox facing each other is going to be a massive indicator. And obviously the Tigers series as well, how the Yankees managed to handle them. And the final 2 weeks. We were talking about the risk of the Yankees potentially downplaying their opponent, although they haven't done the worst job beating the bad teams this year, so that's good. It's been the better teams they've had more trouble with. But nonetheless, anything could happen with that. But it's even more so than that, on top of waiting for next weekend, which is the biggest point of it, but also evaluating when it comes to the division, the Blue Jays' schedule going forward. And it's not the worst for them. I mean, they have a bit of competition coming up. Their next series, they have 3 against the Astros in Toronto, so maybe the Astros can give them a run for their money. Then over the weekend, they welcome the Orioles to town in Toronto. And the Orioles, they have some weird spurts of really, they're just like pests sometimes. I mean, you saw what they did with the Dodgers the other day, right? Like possibly the most mind-boggling loss ever when Yamamoto was 2 strikes away from throwing a no-hitter against them, and they were up 3-0, and then Jackson Holliday hit a solo shot, taking the no-hitter and the shutout out of the equation, and ultimately the Orioles somehow went on to work up another rally and win the freaking game after that, when the Dodgers had a 99.6% win probability percentage at the start of the half inning. That is as wild as it gets, and the Orioles will do that every once in a while, so maybe the Orioles will give the Blue Jays a little bit of a run for their money too and try to play spoiler a bit here down the stretch. We'll see. But that's who the Blue Jays play after they're done with the Astros. Then they go on the road to GMS to play the Rays. So we'll see how the Rays play them. So the Rays can be good, but then they're just mid. I mean, their record quite literally portrays that, 71-72. But maybe they could give the Blue Jays a little bit of trouble. That's the deal that week, from Monday through Thursday, I believe it is. Yeah, so 4 games over there. Then they play Kansas City in KC. So, I mean, that's kind of interesting. The Royals are a couple of games over 500. See how they do against them. And then for the last week, they have 3 against the Red Sox in Toronto. And then they finish off against the Rays again. So that's also another factor, too, how they do against the Red Sox, because the Red Sox aren't out of it either. Red Sox are 3.5 games out of first. Only a game and a half behind the Yankees. And also, what'll be the story with the Red Sox at that point of the season after they face the Yankees next weekend. So there's a lot still to happen here. So I completely agree with the people saying just waiting another week, at least seeing how the Yankees and Red Sox head-to-head matchup goes next weekend. I totally understand that. That's kind of the boat I'm in. If I had to definitively choose a choice between yes or no, which isn't completely necessary because I did supply that third choice, but if I had to choose yes and no, gun to my head, I would actually say yes, that the Yankees will take the division back. It's very tough, but the Blue Jays in recent weeks, we've talked about it for a while now, have very much come down to earth after that ridiculous hot streak they went on for months earlier on in the year, while the Yankees were just sucking and just blew the division. And while a lot of it depends on this week, I think the Yankees, if they just win 2 out of 3 again, with either or both of these series, I think that could do it. And if the Yankees just don't downplay their freaking opponents in the last 2 weeks. The Twins are pretty much a given. I'd be shocked if they're not. And the White Sox, they seem to handle very well in Chicago, and hopefully they do the same at Yankee Stadium. The Orioles, you got to be a little careful with, because like I said, they tend to be a little weird, a little sneaky, a little pesty, so just be a little careful with them. Otherwise, I pretty much just want to wait another week. So those are my thoughts on that. I think the Yankees very well could, though. 2 games back, 19 to go. It's more than possible. If they had a bad weekend against Toronto, if they lost 2 or maybe even all 3 of the games, I'd be singing a different tune right now, as I'm sure many or all of other Yankee fans would be doing the same. But they are where they are right now, and that's my idea. Wait another week, see what happens, but it is certainly very possible. I did get a couple of people leave their thoughts, even though the main motivation was obviously just respond to the poll and I read out the results just to see vaguely what people are thinking. But just a few quick replies here before we wrap up for the day. First up, we got my friend Rebecca at Peace Now for Life. One of the most dedicated Yapping Yankees listeners out there, gotta say. Shout out to Rebecca. Go give her a follow at Peace Now for Life. The number 4 in there. So Peace Now, number 4, Life. Go give her a follow. You won't be disappointed. She says, I'm optimistic, shocker, I know, with only being 2 back and a much easier schedule coming up with a tougher schedule for Toronto. The East will be ours. Yeah, they definitely have a tougher schedule than we do, but they're also a much more patient team and they play clean baseball. Even if I do think the Yankees are better on paper than they are, I literally do. They play a much more controlled brand of baseball. And throughout the entire course of the season, even though the Yankees got the last laugh here, with the last series at least, they really did handle the Yankees. So sometimes the best team on paper doesn't always get the job done. That's just the way it goes. While their schedule isn't like ridiculous, after this series is concluded now, it is tougher. So, yeah, like I said, I did go over the schedule. And the Orioles, if they don't act like pests, that'll be an easy series for them. And they do face the Rays a couple of times. But if the Rays just go belly up, that'll be easy. But they're not that scary, the Rays, so that could very well happen. And the Red Sox are interesting. The Astros and the Red Sox in these last 3 weeks are very interesting matchups for them. So we'll see. But the Yankees have interesting matchups coming up here, too, with the Red Sox and Tigers. Tough. So we'll see. At VicVal1970 says, too inconsistent. And that's fair. They have been many times throughout the year, but they did take care of business this past week. They did. At Fundamentals NYY says, I don't see the Blue Jays offense struggling. We'll see. See what happens if they hit good pitching. Spencer at Musician DMD, my buddy Spence. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Spencer says, I think the Blue Jays will persevere and win the division, unfortunately. They are imperfect but resilient. I see many parallels to the 1985 season, which is why I'm enjoying the current race. It's giving me some nostalgia. Interesting. Yeah, that's true. There are some similarities to see there. Very interesting, Spence. At Spring Rose NY says, Blue Jays not letting go of the division. That's fair enough. Listen, I definitely think there's a very solid chance they could still take it away, but we'll see. Again, a lot of it depends on this next week. That's really what I'm siding towards. At Isles2231 says, it's a little weird. Last week I was anti-Astros. This week I need to root for them versus the Blue Jays. Yeah, exactly. That's next. Especially to even more so help the Yankees get through to the Tigers and have any potential wins against the Tigers actually mean something and actually help them gain some ground. So, yeah, it's very funny how quick it goes. Last week, hating them to death, and then this week, actually wanting them to win at least a couple of games despite our hatred for them. This is interesting. And a couple of thoughts from our usual final two, as always. First up, my lovely girlfriend at Vic Salimo says, I actually do think they'll take the division back, only to annoy us in the playoffs. That's completely fair. Oh, God. That is fair. And last but certainly not least, my mom at Julia Gina Scudero, who does not have Twitter and was not able to vote herself on there, did reply saying, yes, I do think they will win the division back. There you have it. Mixed bag here. A lot of people saying no, a lot of people saying yes, and a lot of people also saying waiting another week. Mixed bag. So I guess that's just some people opting for patience. Or also just being confident in one or the other. But it's very interesting. Usually, I've had many polls in the past where one choice is just dominant over the others, but not this time. All of them pretty close to each other in voting power. So we will see what this next week has to offer, guys. Very interesting. Tigers and Red Sox. Everybody strap themselves in and get ready for probably another wild ride. Please, Yankees, win at least, I'd say at least win 2 out of 3 with both if you can, but at least one of these next 2 series, win 2 out of 3. At that point, you'll be at least, if they win 2 out of 3 for all of them, they'll be 8-4 in this 2-week stretch, and I'd take that. If not, then they'll be 7-5 if they win 2 out of 3 in one, and then 1 out of 3 for the other. 7-5, I guess you kind of take it. 6-6, it's starting to get rough at that point. Let's hope for series victories in both of them. That'd be very, very nice. Maybe even a sweep, dare I ask? That would, speaking of lovely, my God. But we'll see, my friends. As of right now, episode 262. That is all for today, my good people. Remember to follow me on social media if you have not already. Facebook fan page, Mike Scudero NY. My Twitter, or X, is at Mike Scudero, and my Instagram is MikeScuds97. Subscribe to Yapping Yankees on all 4 of the platforms it is available on if you have not already. That is YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Like, subscribe, comment, do whatever it is you do to show your love for the show and spread the word about it like you always do such a great job at doing, my friends. And if you've missed any past Yapping Yankees episodes, do not worry. Episode 1, going back like 5.5 years, all the way back there, all the way up to today. So episode 1 up to 262 today. All of those episodes can be found on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. If you're drawn more to YouTube, though, and you prefer YouTube, kind of like I do, so I don't blame you, that's fine. But just know that I didn't start uploading, again, I say this every week, but as a reminder, didn't start uploading there until episode 34. So episodes 34 up to 262 can be found on YouTube. But once again, I thank you 3,000 for listening to me yap today, my good people. As always, I have been your host, Mike Scudero, and we shall yap again next Sunday, September 14th, for the 3rd week in a row, trying to get some consistency back, finishing strong here, when I come at you with episode 263 of Yapping Yankees. But until then, my friends, the usual, hang in there, be patient, please stay safe, look out for your loved ones, go ahead and kick life's ass this week like I always tell you to do, my friends. You're probably reciting all those things by heart at this point, hearing the same thing every single week. But other than that, just let's hope and pray for yet another successful week of very, very important 2025 Yankees baseball. If they do it against the Tigers and Red Sox, we're going to be riding pretty high heading into an easier schedule. But let's keep our wits about us. Let's stay grounded and humble. And just hope and pray for the best to the utmost of our ability as we just beg for the cleanest possible brand of baseball from one of the sloppier teams we've ever seen in Yankees history. This should be interesting, my friends. I very much look forward to yapping with you again. So until then, take care, and let's go Yanks.